Welcome to Agriculture Tutorials. We are going to discuss about millets. The millets, in the sense, it is a type of small seeded grass. All millets are the group of small seeded grasses widely grown around the world as a cereal crops, grains for both human food and fodder. Millets are important crops in the semi-arid tropics of Asia, Africa, with 97% of millet production in developing countries. The crop is favored due to its productivity and short growing season. Millets grown under dry, high temperature conditions. While millets are grown in many parts of the world, but millets most likely as an evolutionary origin in tropical Western Africa, as that is where the greatest number of both wild and cultivated farms exist today. Millets are originated from tropical Western Africa, as its greatest number of both wild and cultivated farms are exist there in West Africa, tropical West Africa. Millets are the important crops in semi-arid tropics of Asia and Africa, with 97% of millet production in developing countries. Millets nothing but small seeded grasses widely grown in the world as a cereal crops. Millet grains are useful for human food and fodder. Center of origin of millet is tropical Western African region. Then it converted to Southern Africa. And again it transferred to India. This all the origin types millets are sorghum, finger millet, etc. Are the sorghum is the major millet, bajra, etc. Are the pearl millet is nothing but bajra. Millet characteristics. Millet height plant may vary from 0.5 to 4 meters. Millets can grow height up to 4 meters. Millet grain has great variation, can nearly white, pale yellow, brown, gray, slate blue or purple color. Millet grains are white, pale yellow, brown, gray, salt blue or purple. The kernel shape of different type of millets, 5 different classification. The kernel shapes are obovate, hexagonal, lanceolate, globular, elliptical. Grains of millets are almost 3 to 4 long. The seeds usually weigh between 2.5 to 14 grams. Millet grams in weight is 14 grams. Size of millet kernel is about one third of that of sorghum. Size of millet kernel is about one third of that sorghum. Major millets include sorghum and pearl millet. Sorghum is a jowar, pearl millet means bajra. Minor millets are finger millet, proso millet, little millet, foxtail millet, barnyard millet, kodo millet. Minor millets are finger millet, proso millet, little millet, foxtail millet, barnyard millet, kodo millet. This, this is the millets grown in India, major millets as well as minor millets. 6 small millets, that is includes finger millet, foxtail millet, kodo millet, proso millet, barnyard millet, little millet. Finger millet means Elsinia coracana. Foxtail millet means Setaria italica. Kodo millet means Paspalum sorbiculatum. Proso millet means Panicum millesium. Barnyard millet means Echinoclova frumitans. Little millet means Panicum sumentrans. Type of millets. Major millets and minor millets. Major are sorghum or jowar, pearl millet or spiked millet or candle millet or bajra, usually called as. This is how the sorghum and pearl millet looks in what you are observing. Proso millet or common millet, barugu, in Telugu వర్గులు, finger millet ragi, foxtail millet navine, kodo millet araka. These are the pictures how it is. Little millet, samai, sama, samalu, little millet. Nutritious values of millets: protein percentage is 5.8 to 20.9, starch is 63.1 to 78.5, soluble sugars is 1.4 to 2.6, crude fiber is 1.1 to 1.8 percentage, fat is 4.1 to 6.4. This is the nutrient levels in different constraints and their ranges: protein, starch, soluble sugars, crude fiber, fat, etc. These are the nutrient values of the millets. Nutrient content of the millets. In finger millet 7.3 protein, sorghum 10.4, pearl millet 11.8 grams protein, foxtail 12.3, little millet 7.7, kodo millet 8.3, proso millet 12.5, barnyard millet 6.2, paddy rice 6.8. More than paddy and wheat, the millets have nutritional content. Have to explain in this slide. So the red color denotes the decaying or reducing levels of protein, carbohydrates, fats, minerals, fiber, calcium, phosphorus, iron, energy, thiamine, and niacin in all accepts among traditional consumption, high consumption paddy rice and wheat cereals compared to that cereals, the millets are having the fantastic high nutritional content. Millet is a principal source of energy, protein, vitamins, and minerals for millions of the poorest people in the regions where it is cultivated. Millet, like sorghum, is generally 9 to 13% protein, but large variations in protein content from 6 to 21% have been observed. Millet grain compares favorable with maize and sorghum as a high energy and a high protein ingredient in feed for poultry, cattle, and sheep. Several studies indicated that compared to maize, millets is 8 to 60% higher in crude protein and 40% rich in amino acids, lysine and methionine. Anti-nutritional facts: the oxalic acid in millet reduces the biological activity of calcium, hence negative impact on milk production and fat content. Millet production in India, Nigeria, Niger, China, Burkina Faso, Mali, Sudan. All over the global production, India almost 10 lakh metric tons production according to 2025. Global millet consumption, average millet consumption, India is 42%. Other countries is 58%, Nigeria 20%, China 5%, Niger 8%, Burkina Faso 4%, Mali 3%. Global millet consumption, average millet consumption in the year of 2003. Total millet consumers: India, Nigeria, Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali. These are the countries are the top millet consumers in 5-year average in metric tons. In India, 9 lakh above metric tons are the Indian consumers eat millets. Cultural practices: seedbed preparation. Weeds should be controlled prior to planting, and seedbed should be firm and well worked. Since millets are planted late in the season, spring following and cultivation for the weed control and practices are necessary. Seed rate is recommended at 4 pounds per acre. An exact seed rate is not critical because Pale millet can partially compensate for poor stand by increasing the number of tillers. Seedling depth should be 1/2 to the 1 inch in deep. Seedling depth should be 1 inch. Spacing and depth. Sowing depth 2 to 5 centimeters. Sorghum. For other millets 2 to 4 centimeters sowing depth. Row spacing 15 to 50 centimeters row spacing. Irrigation. Finger millet. Total water requirement is 350 mm. Finger millet is a drought tolerant crop. Pre-planting irrigation at 7 to 8 centimeters is given. Third day after transplantation, live irrigation and with small quantity of water is sufficient for uniform establishment. For finger millet irrigation, water is withheld within 10 to 15 days after establishment of seedling for healthy and vigorous growth. Subsequently, 3 irrigations are essential at pre-module initiation and flowering and grain filling stage. Environmental requirements: soil temperature should be at least 65 degrees Fahrenheit, preferably warmer, before pale millet is planted. Millets grow well on well drained loamy soils. They will not tolerate waterlogged soils. Extreme drought condition is required. Proso millet does not perform well on coarse and sandy soils. Fertility management. For conventional production, 40 to 80 pounds of nitrogen per acre is required. Most of the Indiana soils. Lower amount is appropriate if the millet follows a legume as such crop like soybeans. Since nitrogen needs are modest, fertilizer nitrogen can be applied as a side resid rather than the pre-plant if appropriate. Nitrogen needs certainly to meet the any source of organic or inorganic as well as organics such as animal manure or leguminous cover crop. Phosphorus and potassium needs of pale millet have not been well studied, but again the rule of thumb is to use rated fertilizer recommended by soil test labs for sorghum. Phosphorus response is likely to be improved if the phosphorus is banded near the seed. Liming is probably not necessary on most of the Indian soils for pale millet since it is been reported to be fairly tolerant of low soil pHs. These are the fertility management. Next, weed control, mechanical as well as chemical weed control we can follow. Millets do not compete well against weeds, so it is an important to control serious weed problems prior to planting. Millets are not seeded until the middle of the June. Millets are not seeded until the middle of the June. Germinating annuals and emerging perennials can be controlled by frequent cultivation during early growth. Chemical weed control should be done with the 2,4-D for the broadleaf weeds in proso millet can be applied when the crop is about 4 to 6 inch tall. Spraying should not be avoided at the time of 4 to 6 inch tall when heading or flowering. Atrazine, which was used for control of annual broadleaf weeds as well as some grasses in proso millet, will not be labeled up to September 1990. There is a no use of proso millet for the controlling of annual weeds up to 1990. After 1990, atrazine is used for the control of annual broadleaf weeds and some grasses in proso millet. Diseases and their control. Head smut and kernel smut diseases will come. You have to check this image. This is the first right one is head smut and the middle one is kernel smut. Last one is bacterial stripe disease. These are the diseases. Smut is Ustilago species and is Specialotheca species. Bacterial stripe disease is Pseudomonas syringae versus pathogen variety panicae. Insects and mites and their control. Insect coming to the insects, mites. Mites will be major insects in the millets. Wheat curl mite, grasshopper, and armyworm is the majorly occurring pests in millets. For the controlling of insects and mites, using insecticides such as malathion, meta-allied, methoprin, phosphotoxin, pyrrolin, and sevin, and Tiloin is the insecticide we have to control the pests in millets. Harvesting. Proso millet is ready for harvest when the seeds in the upper half of the panicle are mature. Seeds in the lower half of the panicle may still in duff stage should not should have lost their green color. The time of harvesting, lower half of the panicle may still in the duff stage, but we have to harvest when the almost all the green color is lost on the millets. So that time we need to harvest proso millet. At this point the leaves and stems may still green, but you have to harvest the proso millet. Millet is usually harvested by the swathing to allow drying to stop before combining. Means millets usually harvest by swathing to allow drying of straw. We need to allow the drying of straw before combining harvesting. Swathing too early reduces the yield, test weight, and color quality. So, too early swathing is not necessary. So, at the time of swathing, when it comes, that time only it gives the higher yields. Harvesting too late increases the loss of a result of shattering and lodging. Harvesting too late also problem because of loss of moisture and the results of shattering and lodging. Rodents and buds can also damage to proso millet during ripening. Harvest the millet when the grasses or seed heads have turned golden brown. Harvest the millet when the grasses and seed heads have turned golden brown. Millet can be harvested either by hand or with the using of mechanical thresher. Millets can be harvested either by hand or with the use of mechanical thresher. Thanking you, all my dear friends. Please like and share and subscribe to agricultural tutorials. Jai Hind.